Shalom, brothers and sisters. This is part 3 of our Passover lesson. All right. So we're getting to the end of Exodus 12. And, we're going to we're going to explain what the Passover was about more so. It's in, Exodus 12 and 47. All the congregation of Israel shall keep it. So we're supposed to have a congregation. All right, doesn't say a solo man keep the Passover by himself, or one, like I said, one little solo person, like a guy just stayed by himself in his house and said, "I'm keeping the Passover, get a whole lamb and eat it 1,000 times before the lamb is done." There's no reason to do that. The scriptures tell us if the household be too little, invite your neighbors. That's law too, all right? So, all the congregation of Israel shall keep it. No matter what camp you're in, so-called camp, we're still one congregation. All right? One congregation. It says, "And when a stranger shall sojourn with thee, and will keep the Passover to the Lord." What is this stranger talking about? This stranger over here is talking about Israelites. An Israelite from another land. Like, in other words, I'm in New York and say this person come from New Jersey or come from Connecticut. They're a stranger because they're not a person I normally see every day. It says, "And will keep the Passover unto the Lord, let all his males be circumcised." So if any man wants to keep the Passover, every man has to be circumcised, no exceptions, even down to the least, even the babies. Every male should have been circumcised by the 8th day in the congregation of Israel. Or if he hasn't been circumcised, let's just say he came in the truth later, then he has to get circumcised to keep the Passover. This is what the law says. "And let him come near and keep it." So after he's circumcised, to keep it. "And be not as one born and he shall be as one born in the land." Meaning he's going to be treated just like he was born in the land, meaning the land of Israel, land of Jerusalem. It says, "For no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof." Meaning an uncircumcised person is not supposed to eat the Passover. All right. "One law shall be to him that is homeborn," meaning born in the land, "and unto the stranger that sojourn among you," talking about an Israelite from another land. Because a regular stranger of another nation, they cannot keep the Passover with us. All right, this Passover was for the children of Israel and their servants, meaning the slaves that they bought, the servants that they bought. Not just a hired servant, someone you pay, but someone you bought for money. They can keep it because they're in your household. "Thus did all the children of Israel as they commanded Moses and Aaron, so did they. And it came to pass at the self-same day that the Lord did bring the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt by their arms." So, right, we completed Exodus 12. Now we're going to go into more scriptures on how to keep the Passover. Let's go to Numbers, the 9th chapter. It's going to go into the Passover, the second Passover, when we were in the wilderness. It says, "And the Lord spake unto Moses in the wilderness of Sinai." So now we're in the wilderness. "In the first month of the second year after they would come out of the land of Egypt." So now this is year number 2. All right. So we're out of Egypt now. Now we're in the wilderness. "Let the children of Israel also keep the Passover in its appointed season." So we're supposed to keep the Passover when? In the appointed season. What is that appointed season? That appointed season is what you call today a spring. That's when we're supposed to keep the Passover. Not fall, not summer, not winter, spring. I see some Israelites keeping the Passover in February. February is winter. I don't care how hot it is in your location. February is winter. The end of almost the end of March is around March 20th, March 21st, 22nd. That is winter. That is spring. Passover is supposed to be kept in that time bracket in the spring. All right, that first new moon is supposed to be in the spring. All right, any new moon that comes before the springtime, that is not the new year. All right, Because if you keep the new year wrong, you're going to keep the Passover wrong. So remember that. Keep it in a season. All right? It doesn't say March, April. It says in its season. The season is spring. But the Passover is supposed to be kept in the spring. And we know the spring is around almost the end of March. Like the third week in March, basically. All right? It says, in the 14th day of this month at even, it's also known as the 15th day in other verses. Ye shall keep it in its appointed season. What's the season again? Spring. According to all the rites of it, and according to all the ceremonies thereof, you shall keep it. So when we went to the wilderness, even though we wasn't coming out of Egypt no more, the scripture said keep every rites and every ceremony, meaning all the blood on the doorpost, roasting the whole lamb, the hyssop, put, all the rites and all the ceremonies, everything that we kept in Egypt, we're supposed to keep again. So it said, and Moses spake unto the children of Israel that they should keep the Passover. It doesn't tell us to go get lamb chops and a piece of celery and an egg and a matzah. It doesn't say that. It tells us in Exodus 12 how to keep the Passover and all the rites. All right?
Yo, come in. Yo, come in.
It says, and they kept the Passover on the 14th day of the first month at evening in the wilderness of Sinai, according to all the Lord had commanded Moses, so did the children of Israel. So we kept it in the wilderness. We kept the Passover in the wilderness. It says, and there were certain men who were defiled by the dead body of a man. So these men were defiled, meaning they had been near a dead body. It says, wherefore we are kept back, that we may not offer an offering unto the Lord in His appointed season. So we wasn't able to keep the Passover because these men were unclean. So I had to pause for a second because of some disruptions. So let's read on. So these men were unclean, so they were unable to keep the Most High's Passover. All right? Because you can't be unclean and keep the Passover. Here it is, someone died and you've been there, a dead body, and you couldn't keep the Passover. You cannot keep the Passover if someone dies, if you're near a dead body. 7 days, you are unclean. It says, and there were certain men who were defiled by the dead body of a man, that they could not keep the Passover on that day. And they came before Moses and before Aaron on that day. So they came and said, look, we've been near a dead body. And Moses said unto them, stand still, and I will hear what the Lord will command concerning you. So he said, stand still, because he's going to inquire of the Lord what's going to happen with these men. All right? It says, also calls the Passover an offering. It calls it an offering, it calls it a sacrifice. It says, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, if any man of you or your posterity be unclean by reason of a dead body, or be in a journey afar off, yet he shall keep the Passover of the Lord. So when you first read this, you think that, oh, he can still keep the Passover with everyone else. Let's read on to see what the Most High means. The 14th day of the second month at evening ye shall keep it, and eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. So if you were unable to keep the first one because of a dead body or a journey afar off, what does that mean? That means you're very far and there was no way you can get to the location. You was just unable. Something could have happened. You could have, boat could have shipped. I mean, the boat that you had, it could have stopped. And today, it could be, you're trying to fly to keep the Passover, and all of a sudden, the bus, train, or whatever you use for travel, it breaks down. These things happen. So you keep it on the 14th. You keep it the same exact way you kept it on the first month and the 14th day, but you keep it on the second day, the second month and the 14th day, just like you kept the original, just like you kept the first one. So you still had to keep it. That's what it means. Yet keep the Passover. Keep it in the second month. They shall leave none of it until the morning, nor break any bone of it. According to all the ordinance of the Passover, they should keep. So once again, it's talking about the blood on the doorpost, the hyssop, the whole lamb, male lamb, first year, everything we're supposed to keep. All right? It wasn't just kept in Egypt, it was kept in the wilderness also, in the same fashion. Yes, we may not have the death angel passing through us, passing by our houses, but we keep it as a memorial every year of what happened. So we do the same ritual over and over again, every year, the 14th day of the month at evening. And if you unclean, the 14th day of the second month. But the man that is clean, so here it is, you have nothing wrong with you, and not in a journey, and forbeareth to keep the Passover. So that means you have access to get to the Passover, you're not unclean, and you just decide, I'm not going to keep it. Even that same soul shall be cut off from among his people. So the Most High said that you're going to be cut off, meaning your spirit's going to be, you're going to be destroyed. All right, you're not going to make it to the kingdom. Because he brought not the offering of the Lord in his appointed season. That man shall bear his sin. So once again, it calls the Passover an offering. All right. And if a stranger shall sojourn among you, and will keep the Passover unto the Lord, once again, the stranger is talking about other Israelites. It's not talking about other nations, because the other nation can't keep the Passover. According to the ordinance of the Passover, and according to the manner thereof, meaning the manner that Exodus 12 tells us to do it, not get lamb chops. Got to keep stressing that. So shall ye do. Ye shall have one ordinance both for the stranger and for him that was born in the land. So this is going into more detail. It's basically telling us to keep the Passover the same way we kept it in Egypt. We kept it in the wilderness for 40 years. Every year we did it. You don't have to keep telling you every single Passover for 40 years. We kept it 40 years in the wilderness as the scriptures commanded. All right? We kept it 40 years in the wilderness. We kept it in Egypt. All right? So let's go to Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. Leviticus 23. Leviticus 23 and 5. It says, and the 14th day of the first month at even is the Lord's Passover. So when is the 14th day? The 14th day of even. Not the 14th day, but the 14th day at evening, meaning the day is ending. And on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread unto the Lord. 7 days ye must eat unleavened bread. So a lot of people read this 15th day and the 14th day, and they read unleavened bread and Passover, not realizing that the 14th day at evening is the 15th day. And the Passover is called the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and it's 7 days, not one day of the Passover and then 7 days of unleavened bread. No, the Passover is the Feast of Unleavened Bread. It says, so don't get it confused and have 8 days of Passover, 8 days of, 1 day of Passover, 7 days of unleavened bread. No, it's all 7 days. It says, ye shall keep a holy convocation, ye shall do no servile work therein. So we're not supposed to go to work on the Passover. But ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord 7 days, and the 7th day is holy convocation. Ye shall do no work therein. So in the past, we used to offer an offering for the 7 days. All right? We're going to go into what that meant. And on the 7th day is a holy convocation, meaning a Sabbath. All right, brothers and sisters, shalom.